this race. Connor Mance on the line too. And here we go. And they're off. This is the start of the World 10,000 meter race here at the 10. This is the main event, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the two pacers out front here.
Weather's perfect. It's showing 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The flag is completely flat, no wind, or down, no wind whatsoever. And 4 pacers, as you said. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this.
Some jostling for position there. You can see the field fanning out as the two Puma pacers go out to the front. You have El Sandal and Athanas Kyoko going to the front to pace this thing. We know that Ihab is going through for 5,000, and I think Athanas is going to try to get to 7K for this. So, and these guys are going after that 27-minute mark, and they know the task at hand. We asked them yesterday who they think will be behind them when they step off the track, and they kind of laughed a little bit and said, well, I think guys like Joe Klecker and Woody Kincaid are going to be up there, but don't count out Sam Atkin.
Yes, as we saw from the pre-race commercial and video, I mean, there's so many people that you can't count out, right? You know, it's like, as we both looked through our kind of pre-race notes, and we talked about who to, do extra research on, who to prep for, it was like, well, this person and that person and this person too. And I think it's interesting as well, you've got these teammates together, these groups, as you've been referencing, these different training groups, and they feed off one another. They can toe the starting line. They feel calmer when they get to the starting line because they've warmed up with someone they've trained with every day. And in the race itself, they can take confidence by gauging off their positioning.
And Sam Atkin, when we talked to him yesterday, was a little chafed, I would say. He pointed out that Sound Running on their Instagram posted records within threatening distance.
Oh boy.
And they left out Great Britain. Sam Atkin, being a British fellow who trains stateside, went to Lewis and Clark State in Idaho, but he's been on a tear lately. Ran 7:31 in the 3,000 indoors in the same race that Yared Nuguse broke that American record running 7:28. But Atkin in that race running 7:31 broke none other than Sir Mo Farah's 3,000 meter national record. And Sir Mo Farah owns the 10,000 meter national record at 26:46. And Sam was upset that he wasn't mentioned threatening that distance.
Well, that tells me too that he's feeling good about himself if he's, I've just broken this record, an old record, I might add, and feeling like he's ready to go after this one as well.
And we could see on the board too, we have what the fans think. And the fan favorite at this moment is Woody Kincaid, getting 268 first-place votes. If you haven't voted, well, you can't now because the race has started. Joe Klecker is coming in second in 140, and Luis Grijalva making his debut here, Guatemalan athlete, but American dreamer. He's making his debut in the 10,000 meters. 4th place finish at Worlds in the 5,000 meters. A bit of a surprise, but once you've done it, you're no surprise anymore. And it's funny how that can shift in the zeitgeist of American world distance running.
Yeah, I met Grijalva for the first time last year at Lilac. I have to give him a special shout out because he grew up in Fairfield, where my mother's from, went to the same high school, Armijo High School, that my mom went to. And when I met him, an accomplished collegiate athlete, but wasn't necessarily someone that you would be looking to at the start of the race or particularly calling out. But he's training up in flag with Mike Smith. Kincaid actually is up there with that team right now too. And he, is having these strong finishing kicks in the mile and running all the way up to the 5K. Someone had mentioned his running mechanics are reminiscent of Pre, so maybe he's his reincarnation. But it's really exciting to see him out there, especially one of the dreamers had to get special permission to go out of country to compete at the Olympics, and here he is just really showing what is possible.
Yeah, and he's tucked back there. If you look back, you can see Woody bobbing around wearing the blue kit. and he's behind Zach Panning, I believe. In front of him, wearing the other blue kit, is Connor Mance, but they're tucked midway back in the pack. Up front, you have Ollie Hoare in the hat behind the trio of Pacers, and then Sam Atkin is the first real contender in this field, and then Joe Klecker is following him, and Ren Tozawa, the Japanese runner, following him. So through 3 laps, first lap 65.4, 65.8, 65.2, well, through 1,600 meters in 4:22, sorry. And this is 2,000 meters that they've just crossed. So 4:22 through 1,600. 65s is what they want for 27 flat, so they're a bit slower right now, but I don't think that's a problem. 66.2 and through 2K in 5:28. And now we have one of the Pacers moving out, stepping off, or maybe just not sure what's going on there. He could be jumping back in, but
maybe he was just for 2K. Oh.
Nonetheless, that the splits on the board were showing 1,200, and we're well past that now. So some movement amongst the Pacers here as they get into position. And Eamon Kemboy, oh, look at this shot. Kemboy moving up to the front.
Whole pack just strung out again, you know, all of them just sliding into position, just getting pulled along, especially knowing you've got 4 Pacers. I mean, you have to figure, like, let someone else drive the bus for a while, you know, just find that zen place and just get pulled until the, you know, working end of the race.
And I think even Ollie Hoare has to find a zen place too. Being a 1,500 meter man, having some good stats up there in 5,000, but it's not an easy day to go out there and run 13:30 pace.
Well, you know, and he's been an awesome teammate for his training partners on the On Athletics team. You know, he paced them to a record-breaking race indoors, gets over to Australia where he, as we said, you know, earned bronze for the Australian relay team. Back over here pacing again. You know, that camaraderie and that support of one another. And I think that's something really wise as well when you have these teams that are a mix of international athletes, so that you could be training together and duking it out, but you're not fighting for places on teams. You're fighting for, you know, hopefully medals in the final.
And here they're clawing back some time. So this is through 2,800 meters. That's 7 laps. But through 6 laps, it was a 64.9 and now a 64.89. So they're getting back on pace. And we're coming up to 3K right now. So we'll see what the 3K split is when they hit this 200 meter line. The Pacer comes through at 8:10, 8:11.
They would have wanted to see 8:06 if they were running exactly to the dot, that 27 flat time. But as we keep saying, you know, you can make up a lot of time in the final lap or two. I mean, we saw that with Suzuki where he ran a 62 after multiple laps in 68 to 69. So I would say they're in a great position right now.
Well, and last year, as we said, all nine top finishers ran 62 seconds or faster for their last lap.
Great
so
point.
You can bucket time in those final laps. 8:43 through 3,200 meters. So all you high school kids out there, that's the mark to beat this season. That was a 64.99 for the front. And everybody's still in line here. You can see Alex Masai, he's pulling up the back for NAZ Elite, and Ben Flanagan behind him at the way back of this front pack, which it seems like it's 20 people. So
there is no gap for a long ways. This is a field that came to race.
Yes, that's what people do when they come to JSerra now here in San Juan Capistrano. Sleepy little coastal town in Southern California, but not tonight, not for the 10. And it's Sam Atkin behind Ollie Hoare wearing the shades. Sam Atkin still in that prime spot with Joe Klecker behind him. Last year, we had Sam Atkin, who was an unsponsored athlete, and Woody Kincaid, who then was on the Bowerman Track Club, as the prime pacers for this race, and they set up Grant Fisher and Mohamed for that 26:33 and 26:34. But now they're in this race. They want a little taste of the action, and they're getting it. And Joe Klecker wasn't here last year either, but he's jumping in.
You know, I think for Sam Atkin, he mentioned how his sponsorship with Puma enables him to train in Idaho with his college coach, Mike Collins. I think we do have these groups that are forming, but also we have athletes that recognize that the situation they're in is one that works really well for them, and they want to be able to maintain that consistency. And so repping Idaho out here in San Juan Capistrano, first competing athlete behind the three pacers that are left in the race.
So not a lot of movement has been taking place up front. All those three positions are just like we said, but it looks like Connor Mance is moving up on Ren Tozawa, the Japanese athlete in dark blue, behind Joe Klecker. And then behind Connor Mance, we saw Woody Kincaid and Luis Grijalva, the now teammates. They were coached by Mike Smith over there in Flagstaff, who was also the Northern Arizona University coach, accomplished program.
We have one pacer that just came out, so now we're down to two pacers as we hit the 4K into the race.
So 4,000 meters was reached at the start-finish line previously, and that was 10:54, so 65.1 for that.
About 6 seconds slower than the 27 flat. Goal time of 10:48 at 4K. But looking good. I mean, what are you seeing to me? Tell me, crystal ball, what do you see for the future?
That's a very good question. It's anybody's race at this point. I mean, I think it's far too early to call, and that's the beauty of this, is that there's so many men who could do so many amazing things at the end of this race, and they're all sitting in here waiting, plotting, thinking about what they can do, what anybody else in this pack can do, what their skills can do to match those moves, and do they have what they need to make that happen? Because this has been the target on the calendar for months now, and Joe Klecker said yesterday that, yeah, we wanted to run that 5K at BU, we wanted to run the 3K at Millrose, but check those boxes. All of those are leading to this night.
Exactly. And you know, for Klecker, having his teammate Ollie as the pacer for this group has to give him just extra confidence. That, you know, as we saw with Hoare, he was the fourth of the pacers, so sometimes that first pacer can go lights out. But when you have a second, I mean, gosh, I've hardly ever seen a race where you get four pacers in it. But I'm sure felt like they could guarantee that Ollie would do what was right until the race pace settled out. But to the credit of all the pacers, they've done an excellent job.
And that last lap leading up to 4,800 meters was a 64.9, so they're still pocketing some change, trying to get back onto it. We're coming up to 5,000 meters here. So as we know, 13:30 is 27 flat pace, and that was about 13:35, 36. And now Sam Atkin has pulled off, it looks like. So this is not his day. But we have Joe Klecker closing the gap now up to his teammate Ollie Hoare, and then Ren Tozawa and Connor Mance, Woody Kincaid, and then Luis Grijalva trying to hang on, and Emmanuel Bohr too, who has a 27:23 best and beat Joe Klecker 2 years ago at the track meet 10,000 meters down here in SoCal.
Well, and yeah, and Emmanuel, he won USA cross country, so he's strong. He placed 6th at World Cross in Bathurst on that course that was brutal looking, hot, nothing that was flat, all hills, mud puddles, sharp turns. And this morning, his brother Hillary just went on to win the USA 15K road champs in Jacksonville. So, you know, I have to imagine that gave him some extra inspiration coming into this race as well.
So Kyoko stepping off here as the pacer, but now it looks like maybe he's tucking in behind Woody. So he's staying in it. Ollie Hoare now at the front for the On Athletics Club. And there's no man on the planet who's waving the flag more for the On Athletics Club than Ollie Hoare. He is passionate. He loves to talk about it, building the team as well as the brand. And he puts his legs where his mouth is right now as he jumps out and races in the 1500 and other distances, but also does the work like this for teammates like Joe Klecker. And this pack is getting a little smaller up front.
Yeah, we've seen it go from for this first half of the race, 20-person strong, long train, and now that has definitely changed. It's definitely been blown apart into a main pack and a chase pack.
So it looks like we have our group here, and Luis Grijalva trying to hang on to that group. Grijalva, we were talking to him yesterday, and this is his 10,000 meter debut, and I think we've said that a number of times already, but he's been in Flagstaff since 2017, so been under the tutelage of Mike Smith this will be his 6th year being at NAU, and then going into his professional career being sponsored by Hoka. But he said it took about 3 years to get accustomed to altitude and start to really feel the benefits from it, and like he could train there. But now, knowing that kind of grinding nature and what it takes at altitude, we think that he has a bright future in the 10,000 meters. But we hope he can hang on here a little bit. Maybe he can pull a little Woody Kincaid and kick back up there.
Well, we definitely have seen him motor home with a fast finish in the past, but this is, as you said, his debut in the 10K, so he's in uncharted territory, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a big kick from him at the end, but he just may not have what it takes quite yet to stay with this pack, or at least I'm guessing that's what he's feeling right now. How it plays out in the long term remains to be seen. As we saw in the men's, Heat 2 of the men's, my prediction was completely off, so.
And we're coming up to 6,400 meters here, so Ollie Hoare is moving out. We came up to 6K in 16:18. That was a lap ago. And they were clicking off 65s. That was a 65.4, 17:23 through 6,400 meters. That's 16 laps, so 9 laps to go here. And there's 4 men here who are racing. No pacers. The gloves are off at this point. We're out of book. So now it's what any of these men can do to make this race their own. And who is going to dictate the rules and who is going to counter. And right now Joe Klecker is in the front just like we thought he would be, because he's the man who likes to grind the pace, and that's what he's doing. Mighty Joe Klecker at the front, followed by Ren Tazawa, and then Connor Mance, who can also go to the well pretty darn well, and then Woody Kincaid.
I was dying laughing at Will Lear's description of Klecker in the pre-race kind of review. This man is chiseled from the ore of Minnesota mines. He said he's one of the single toughest people that he's seen run on the track, and after he was outkicked by Kincaid, he, instead of being disappointed that he hadn't gotten the 5K American records indoors, which I'm sure he was disappointed, of course, but at the same time, he was proud of himself for going to a place he hadn't been to before. And as you watched him in that 5K indoors, you could see he almost looked like a fish gasping for oxygen, but from a K to go, and yet he kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing, and he did get out in the end, but get out kicked at the end, but he gave it everything, and we're seeing it again tonight.
And we just heard about 1902 through 7 kilometers there. So Woody Kincaid now moving up in front of Connor Mance, getting into that 3rd position. Ren Tazawa still hanging on, but it looks like Woody did that in order to get closer, because he could see a little gap forming here with Joe Klecker at the front, and he cannot let Joe Klecker get out of his sights. He let him get out a little bit in Boston, and that gap, it always looks a little too scary for everybody watching, but it never, well, I shouldn't say never. A lot of the times it isn't insurmountable for Woody to just run a 25-second final 200 and blaze it up to the front. But now it is the race that we all wanted to see in this later stage, the final act of the 10,000 meters. Joe Klecker and Woody Kincaid, the rematch from Boston University. Woody Kincaid got that one in an American record 12:51, and Joe Klecker coming in 12:54 after driving the pace like he's doing right now.
Well, and it's interesting. I just saw Klecker. It almost looked like he kind of challenged Kincaid a bit to, like, okay, I know what you're doing. Come on up and help. Kincaid doesn't look like he wants to do any of that helping. Happy to sit on Klecker's shoulder right now.
And it's worrisome for those watching, too, because Woody has this amazing kick, but you never know if it's going to be there or not. And
well, yeah, and he talked about it. It was funny because after setting that American record, he was questioned by Jonathan Galt in an interview about, weren't you worried? It's always a little bit scary. He was like, no, I've always kicked at the end of races, and so I just always kick. But to your point, sometimes that distance can become insurmountable. So, trying to keep himself in contact here while still having the speed over the final laps.
And 10,000 meters is twice the distance of 5,000 meters, obviously. So there's a lot more margin for error there, which you want to stay as close as possible in order to be able to make your move at the end, and Woody is doing that. Woody has finished only 3 10,000 meter races in his pro career, and they all happened in 2021. The first one of that year being here at the 10, where he ran 27:12. So we know, it seems like if Woody is in similar fitness, Joe needs to grind this pace faster than that in order to get rid of him, because Woody still closed that race in 57 seconds.
Exactly. I think that this is going to play out just like we saw in the 5K indoors about a month or two ago, with Klecker just pushing and grinding, and Kincaid holding on. And in that race, as you mentioned, we saw a gap be formed, which Kincaid was ultimately able to close, but it doesn't look like Kincaid's going to be trying to take the front anytime soon, and Klecker's just going to try to see if he can break him.
And these are the 8,000 meter splits on the board here. So that's what we came through at the previous lap, 21:47, 65:8 for Klecker at the front.
And to remember, 21:36 would be the 8K split for a 27 flat. So it's a little slower than that, but fast closes happen, and they happen often. But being at the 8K mark, now this is when all of the athletes have been saying, okay, get through 5K feeling relaxed, then get to 8K, and then start to race. So it's been exciting, and it's been a race up until now, but now, according to them, is when they're really going to be shifting their mind away from, staying within themselves, and instead thinking about the finish and getting there as quick as possible.
And now Woody swinging up onto the shoulder of Joe Klecker here. I don't know if Joe Klecker wants to let him inside, though. This may be a little bit of gamesmanship between the two here. Don't know if Woody was actually wanting to pass or if he was just showing that he could and then tucking in behind Joe Klecker. We are past 8,400 meters, and we're coming up on 8,800 meters here. That's 22 laps, so we'll have 3 laps remaining when we get to the line, and it's still Joe Klecker at the front. And Woody Kincaid here. Woody Kincaid, who left the Bowerman Track Club this last year to strike out on his own and make his own fame. Tired of being in the shadows of Grant Fisher, Mohamed, the other stellar athletes who he is still friends with in the Bowerman Track Club, but wanting to make it in his own way, and has done so this winter, running the 3,000 meters, winning that at the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix, and most notably in Boston, that 12:51, taking down Grant Fisher's American record in the indoor 5,000 meters.
When asked
And-
about his current situation, he called it complicated. It's complicated.
That's the status.
Yeah. When he set that American record in the 5K indoors, he had only been with Mike Smith and the team in Flagstaff for about a few weeks. I think he said he's been there since January 6th, so it's still early days. He did a lot of training by himself, he said, and now we see him taking the lead earlier than we've seen him do in the past, so he must be feeling himself right now.
This is uncharacteristic, and maybe he's been hearing the chatter.
Yeah.
But before he did that, he looked to have clipped Klecker's heels a little bit, and Klecker stumbled slightly. So we'll see if Mighty Joe could stick with Woody here. And Joe Klecker, let's see, that was a 65.5 as Woody takes the lead after a 66. So we have 2 laps to go now. Joe Klecker, the man that the On Athletics Club was kind of founded around, too. He was the first athlete to be taken and one that they wanted to mold the team after, too. They saw him as a bright star, and he's the guy whose personality they wanted to make replicated in the other athletes that came aboard. So this is the OAC represented on the track here. Joe Klecker racing Woody Kincaid. One of the great rivalries in our sport, I would say. And it's a budding one, too. We could see this for a while, but it's Woody Kincaid and Joe Klecker. Don't count out Joe Klecker's kick as they come to the bell lap.
I love seeing the roles reversed, though, because I love seeing Klecker getting to have somebody to look at. Clearly, he's a grinder, but he's a competitor first and foremost, and so to have the ability to set his sights on Kincaid's back, and as they battle over the backstretch, this is going to be it's going to be good.
So it looks like the knees are picking up a little bit. That was a 65 flat, 26.10 with a lap to go, but we're much further than that now, heading into the 200-meter mark. There is no daylight between the two of them. Both of them are going to the arms. This is all what either man has left on the track. Woody Kincaid out front. Woody Kincaid goes to his signature kick, and we'll see if Joe Klecker can hang on. This is the red-eyed Kincaid driving into the home stretch. He heard a lot of the noise. They were talking about Joe Klecker and how he's so good over 10,000 meters. But this is Woody Kincaid's race, 27.06, followed by Joe Klecker. PRs for the both of them.
What a finish. That was a great battle over the last lap.
And here we've got Kyoko, who stayed in the race after jumping to the front, coming into the finish.
55.96 for Kincaid over that last 400 meters, and a 56.92 for Klecker.
Connor Mance coming in too after Kyoko, 27.25. So stellar finishes across the board. Jonas Reyes in his very first 10,000 meters, 27.26. Ren Tozawa, 27.28, so not quite the Japanese record.